Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
The video has to be started first. If you don't have a plan for your students sure will have a plan for you. Walking into a classroom full of young, dynamic, and energetic students and expecting them to remain engaged with you without a lesson plan or without being prepared is pretty much disastrous on the part of any educator. As an educator for nearly 30 years, I have always believed that every day is not just a lesson, but a lesson plan. I've lived with this belief. And this is also reflected in our work culture, and it occupies the first page of our website, Edudevs. Today, in our session, we will discuss how we can help our educators understand the vitality of a lesson plan and how can they achieve this goal for effective classroom experience. A very good afternoon to one and all. I'm delighted to welcome you to yet another episode of our series, Futuristic Education. And this time we deliberate upon the DNA of lesson planning. These are an initiative collaboratively created by Edudevs School of Inspired Teaching and Learning and Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham to enlighten and empower the educator community in the education trends in the future. These web series are city based. So each episode is deliberated with the principals and heads of schools of a particular city, and we try to capture their opinions. We try and take up pertinent issues of the 21st century. I'm your host and moderator for today, Devyani Kapoor, welcoming you all. So, continuing with our tradition, let me introduce you to our esteemed panel of today. We have with us Dr. G. Naresh Raghava, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics from Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. Let us welcome a very seasoned academician, Ms. Farzana Shakil, who is the Director Principal of Kriti Public School. We also have with us Ms. Tuhina Srivastav, Principal of the prestigious St. Anmar Chipuria School. I welcome you all to today's episode of the DNA of lesson planning. You see, great teachers engineer learning experience amongst their students and put them on the driver's seat where they are able to take off themselves. A lesson plan is an extremely important, as it is the cornerstone of successful teaching practice. Walking into a room full of young people, and maybe please mute our mics. Walking into a room with of a young people, dynamic, energetic, and without having a plan in your hand will not do you so good when an educator is not properly prepared. They create an impression of hurriedly entering the class, not being with the help of a defined roadmap. They create an unprofessional and incompetent impression, not in front of everybody, but in front of their own students whom they feel are their heroes. Lesson planning is, as I was discussing, lies at the heart of an effective teacher. It is a creative process that allows us to synthesize our understanding of a concept and then getting that concept amalgamated with the best possible pedagogical solution. So without much ado, let me come to our introductory questions and let's ask what our panelists have to say and talk about the importance of lesson planning for an effective teaching experience. And why should educators spend time over it? So I would first request Ms. Farzana Shakil, followed by Ms. Tuhina Srivastav, and then Dr. G. Naresh Raghava. And as one of our panelists was telling me that, ma'am, you restrict time because there's so much to happen. So your time is merely 2 minutes. Yes, Ms. Shakil.
So thank you so much, Devyani Kapoor, ma'am. And thank you, Edudevs, for having us here today on this knowledge sharing platform, I'll call it. And it's a wonderful initiative of yours, ma'am Devyani, that you are touching upon all the aspects of futuristic education to make our children future ready. And yes, the most important aspect of this whole TLP is lesson plan, which we as educators need to understand very well. You have already set the tone for the session by saying that entering the classroom unprepared itself is a disaster, not only for yourself, but the impact that it leaves on the student's mind, because we are handling Google generation who are far, far advanced in terms of technology as compared to us. Though teachers have transformed a lot, hats off to each one of them for their overnight transformation and continued learning further. But I would like to say that yes, lesson planning is a very important aspect of the whole teaching learning process. And as an educator, we must know how to plan our lessons well, because it's not just planning, it's actually the teacher's roadmap of what students need to learn and how it will be done effectively during class time. And with NEP 2020, now the focus has shifted from rote learning to competency-based learning. So our lesson plans also have to be competency-based. And the major component of the lesson plans, when we set, apart from the topic and the time duration that we set for our lesson, we have to focus much on objectives. And we must understand that the four major components, because for you, your set of classroom and your set of students must be having diverse needs. Mine may be different, other teachers may be different. So when we set the learning objectives, we need to understand our learner. It's all about the ABCD actually. their learning styles and the diverse needs of your classroom, then the curriculum standards and the competencies that we need to, we are looking forward to inculcate and develop in our children to make them future ready, and the condition in which your plan will be actionable, or where the learners will be working on it. So you have to think
Thank
of
you.
those major components of your learning objectives. And then further, CBSE has already shared this competency based lesson format through a circular which was shared with all of us last year, wherein they have given special focus on thinking and fitting the competencies and language skills into your plans. And then
Right.
further, appropriate activities to review, to present, to practice, to apply and evaluate each competency that you're working on with that lesson plan. And yet, then collect, saving, and sharing instruction materials accordingly. So this is what I have
Thank
to
you.
say. The objectives, how we have to set and how we have to design our plans very, wisely and in a smart way.
Very, very well said. I think the best was that a teacher's roadmap, and you rightly pointed out the key elements of a powerful lesson plan, that learning objectives has to be kept in mind. Moving on to, thank you so much, Ms. Shakil. Moving on to Ms. Tuhina. So how do you feel, anything different if you could tell us, that what is the importance of a plan to an educator? Why should she even have a plan? Why can't she just walk in the class?
Thank you
She
so
has
much,
been
ma'am.
teaching.
Yeah, thank you so much. And of course, as Farzana ma'am has already given the elaboration of the futuristic word, so it's just when you come to plan, you are discussing future actually. So we know that definitely planning is a roadmap to the instructor's success. So ma'am has given the phrase, planning is a roadmap. And to me, if you want to be successful, naturally it has to be planning as per the roadmap, which may lead to our success. Now, planning lessons ahead of time means that the teacher enters the classroom each day fully prepared, right? They know how, what we have to do, what are the strategies we have to follow. As per me, the strategies for effective lesson planning can be divided or can be taken into three basic steps. That is the objective. As
Tuhina ji, we
yes,
will, because planning is something where you'll have to elaborate upon in my next segment. And that is a question which is actually, I'll be, something I had designed by default for you. And so I would like to hear you out in detail. But before that, let me quickly hear out what Dr. Naresh has to say about, sir, very briefly. What is the importance? Why should a teacher have a lesson plan? Why can't she just walk into? She's been teaching for so many years. Why can't she walk into the class and teach? She knows her competencies. So, what makes it different every year? Or very briefly, sir, because there's lots to be spoken in the subsequent
Yeah, so
segment.
basically, systematic lesson planning and effective delivery are the important aspects of a teacher for attaining the expected learning outcome. So, which in turn will help us, which help the teacher to implement the curriculum effectively. So, when we talk about lesson planning, it is about the whole range of planned activities, which is the teacher going to be which is the teacher going to be used for the students for actively engaging in the classrooms, or what are the different environments like the workshops or laboratories. So now when you ask the question like why should a teacher spend a time or educator should spend a time on effective lesson planning, is that so let me take there are few aspects of that. So one is the what is subject matter to be taught. So all the educators, they know that what is subject matter to be taught. So more or less they're fine with that. But apart from that, there are some aspects like, you see, you should include the learner characteristics. So it can't be the same thing. Say, let's take that we have the COVID here. Now the students, when you compare to the previous COVID batches and the batches now we are getting out, so they're not so, they're lacking some of the things. So we should include those kind of characteristics. And also, we should also look at what are the different learning strategies to implement for enabling different abilities and skills to attain the
All right.
learning outcome. Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So very crisply that, yes, different planning is important. Differential learning, strategies should be incorporated. Let me come to the word planning, because we all were talking about and we all wanted, because lesson planning does have a very, very important word in it itself, which is planning. And I think Ms. Tuhina was talking about the importance of, planning. So, Ms. Tuhina, how do we upskill our educators in developing dynamic lesson plans that keep pace with student learning? And also, why is the word planning becomes so important? So if you could throw light on this, and yes, the time is with you now. Tell me.
Sure. See, it is basically upskill your skills. As a teacher, we first tell them that you need to, it's not that you have learned and you know. You need to upskill yourself, and that should be a continuous process. As per the CBSE guidelines, we've been getting trainings how to make our plans or how to do the planning for the classroom. So you know that we have very, very commonly used word, which is smart. So we have to be smart learners, and the people who can apply this word smart in their lesson planning itself. So it should be the SMART objective, which for sure SMART S relates to specific, which is where we know that the objectives are absolutely clear. M relates to measurable, wherein we know that yes, whatever we are explaining or whatever the teacher is explaining can be measurable. You can evaluate through the various processes and tools of evaluation that yes, the child has learnt it or not. Then achievable. A relates to achievable. Can the objective, which at the first instance the teacher must have had in her mind, can that objective be achieved using the various resources available to that person? Resources used by the teacher should be such that the objectives are achievable. Then it's realistic. R relates to realistic. Is this objective realistically in sync with the students' current knowledge skills? Because whenever we start the class, the teachers, they have the induction. We insist that the teacher should check the prior knowledge of the child. So the lesson plans should have that component wherein it can effectively give us a realistic approach, that is this objective realistically in sync with the students keeping their current knowledge updated. Then obviously, as we all work in a certain time frame, so we know that whatever objective we have in our mind, or whatever objective we have or we've been using as a strategy, that should be time bound. Because for everything, there has to be a time limit which needs to be given, whether in the class or outside the class. So the time frame needs to be given, and it should be planned in such a way that we know that yes, there is enough time to get the objective through the interactive activity, through the learning strategies, and through various activities which can make the classroom as well as the teaching learning process interesting. So basically, these are the points for the planning which we insist the teachers should follow to give a punch to their effective teaching learning process.
I think so beautifully put up, where you talk about the SMART goals. And I was, in fact, writing that they need to be specific, measurable. So, lesson plan, you can't just write. Each and every step that you are curating has to have the SMART objectives in front of you, where being specific, measurable, whether that is it achievable. So you don't make very over ambitious lesson plans. Whatever you're planning, whatever the kind of activities you're planning, are something which are doable and age specific. They need to be realistic, which very well you said that, you need to build upon the prior knowledge of the child, and not suddenly, you have to first check what is the level of the child, and then build upon it. And finally, time is right. Thank you so much, Ms. Tuhina. This was really crisp, and I'm sure our viewers would have taken a lot of insight from this. Moving on to Ms. Farzana Shakil. So, Ms. Shakil, you see that while educators use learning objectives, we all write in different ways to achieve a variety of, instructional goals. And the concept is closely related to learning progression. But there's always a sequence. And it all begins with learning objectives, which lie at the hem of any lesson plan. And so I really want to ask, and I want our viewers to know from you, that how much are learning objectives important? And could you mention about 4 or 5 major points that educators need to keep in mind while they're designing the learning objectives? How should they come up with?
As I've already mentioned before also, first now, since from the coming session, I'll say, since lockdown has taken toll on the 2 sessions of academic years almost, coming session, I personally feel that we as educators should be more inclined towards what NEP has envisioned, and then plan our lessons accordingly to be implemented further. So then it talks about competencies. Again, I'll bring this word in, and how are competencies different from learning objectives? Because see, competencies are different from learning objectives in the way that they are applied skills and knowledge that enable students to successfully perform their work over a long period of time, while learning objectives are specific to a certain course of instruction. And then, yes, they are time bound. Competencies can be repeated and included in a further lesson planning across the syllabus and the curriculum over the year repeatedly, because they have to be developed. So we have to make competencies as a part of learning objectives, but yes, they can be further repeated. Secondly, I'll say that while stating the learning, or while designing the learning objectives, all educators must be well versed with the NCERT learning outcomes that have been shared with all the educators like few years back. Since that time, so it's all age appropriate levels of learning and the achievement that has to be attained or achieved in that particular academic session according to the age of the child. So at different levels, we have NCERT learning outcomes. Outcomes and objectives again are 2 different terminologies. So keeping those outcomes in mind, and then the competencies to be developed in your children in alignment with the curriculum and the content that has to be taught in the classroom, with all that knowledge in place, a teacher is now having more responsibility to design the objectives very well. Now, one small suggestion while designing the objectives, please avoid using the terms learn or students will be able to understand, because that makes the objective very, very generalized. Be specific, like students will be able to, suppose measure the scale, distance of the planets. If you are teaching solar system, they will be able to scale the distance, which is in millions of kilometers. Or the students will be able to contrast the sizes of the planets and make generalizations. Or they'll be able to classify, suppose, rocks according to their specific property. So specify and, make it slightly more challenging. Then only you will feel like, adding curiosity and raising the difficulty level with every lesson that you design for your children, and making the classes very joyful and interesting. So just, give them those intellectual stimulations, whatever you have in mind, through the activities which you will design, and set the objectives accordingly. Yes, again, I'll say keep that ABCD well in place in your mind when you are setting the objective. So use different terminology and add on the challenges to the students when they are learning.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Shakil. Competency as a part of learning objectives. That's such an important thing that you have mentioned, that, when we are talking about that, they are age specific, they are specific per se, a concept. So competency has to be matched with. And secondly, a very important point that you mentioned here was, and that I think has to be imbibed by every teacher, and I have written it down, which says that please don't be general. Don't say learn. And we normally, as educators, I remember we write our lesson plans in the biggest hurry, and rather we should spend more time on it. And each and every learning objective has to be properly integrated in terms of, when you're measuring it, then what is it that is being measured? Not that the child has learned. I think very, very seasoned advice that you have given, Ms. Shakil. Thank you so much for this. And I'm sure our viewers would be taking notes, because I was definitely writing each and everything what you were saying. Thank you so much. From here, Ms. Shakil spoke about competencies and differential teaching plans. So my next question is to Dr. G. Naresh Raghava. So when we all know that the planning, and that is an emphasis it was always an emphasis, but now NEP has actually surfaced it loud and clear, that the planning should, the methods should be age specific, appropriate to learners' age, to their past experiences. They should be relevant to that particular characteristic group. How do we accommodate the learning abilities in these lesson plans when the teacher is writing at that time, or when it's teaching, while ensuring its proper delivery in the classroom? Because we, as said, we can't be over ambitious. Everything has to be matched within that time space and as per the prescribed syllabus. So how can planning be differential? Yes, Dr. Naresh.
Ma'am, so the basic thing we can do is that we can use the different strategies for different abilities. We should use the different learning strategies. Say, for example, when you're talking about different domains like cognitive domain, a psychomotor domain, or affective domain. So let us take, for example, cognitive domain. So when you're talking about cognitive learning outcomes, so we have factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, metacognitive knowledge, and procedure knowledge. So we can't use the same strategy. We can't use just chalkboard strategy for each and everything. So we had to, when you're talking about factual knowledge, maybe we can use maps, we can use charts. So similarly, when you're talking about the conceptual knowledge, so there are different kinds of strategies, like inductive teaching strategy and deductive teaching strategy. So where we can use different kinds of strategies, like we can use a workshop method, we can use a laboratory method for inculcating the learning, for attaining the learning outcome. So similarly, when you're talking about the procedural knowledge, we can use the demonstration method. So students should actually, so there we can't use just chalkboard method. So we can use the simulations or we can use the demonstrations. So people should go to the workshop method to make their hands dirty. So we can use, so the main point I want to stress here is that we can use actually different strategies for attaining the different learning outcomes.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Naresh, we'll build upon this and we will move on to, because, you know, to sit here and deliberate upon making it, differential lesson planning, and we can keep, because keeping in mind the multiple intelligence concept, and ensuring that the lesson plan has differential strategies as its pedagogical, deliverables. Uh, don't you think, Ms. Tuhina, uh, it would be overambitious? And how do educators create such opportunities amidst the pressure of syllabus completion and school protocols, limited resources, and limited time frame? That there's always in school, you enter and you exit and you really don't know how the day structure passes by, and then all this has to be incorporated. Yes, Ms. Trina.
See, ma'am, the word dynamic itself will incorporate all these aspects. It should be like that. Dynamic lesson planning is a very, very thoughtful method of preparation that allows the teachers to manage their lessons with confidence and challenges them to teach in a more relatable way. Now, these are typical words which itself express that if we are talking about confidence, means that a teacher also has in his or her mind that we have to complete this part of the syllabus. So, and if that time frame is being taken into consideration, that confidence level will always be there that yes, we are able to finish up that. Then the challenge to teach in a more relatable way means that if we have the resources, maybe limited, maybe few, but if we can relate our teaching process to these relatable things, then it would be easier for us to explain and bring in the knowledge escalation to the child's existing knowledge. So the planning has to be dynamic. Then a good dynamic lesson plan definitely can enrich a learning process from the beginning till the end. As I said, that it will escalate the classroom interaction because we've already set an objective and our objective has the strategies with activities. So classroom interactions, it supports the critical thinking that what should be delivered, how should be delivered, and what are the learning outcomes. As well as it escalates the communication skills from both the ends because we are taking interaction. The teacher will be able to know that whatever the delivery has been done through this dynamic lesson plan, whether the outcome has been reached or not. And of course, the creativity. So if we implant all these things in a lesson plan, I'm sure it is going to cater with the syllabus framework, along with the school protocols, as you said, that we have to follow certain norms, we have certain time frame, the periods are there, the time limit is there, we have lot many things to do in a particular framework of time and limited resources and time. So, the lesson plan has to be planned in such a way that with all these things, and for all this thing, the first and the foremost thing is the objective. So if we have the objective very clear in our mind, will be able to follow all these things stepwise. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tuhina. And actually, if you follow what Ms. Tuhina has said, I think all that I was saying would start becoming immaterial, because everything begins by planning. And that is what is known as a dynamic lesson plan. So educators need to spend that kind of a time. That is why the beginning of the year is the most important time, because then once you plan it to the micro level planning, what are the resources, where am I going to fit this up, if I have to book some transport, or if I have to book some lab, or if I have to procure some material, if that falls in place, then everything will be taken care of. And that is why they say envisioning is a very, very important aspect of success if you want to attain it, and it requires a lot of planning. So, and yeah, because as I remember, just off the mark, that we would just, the moment we would enter the class, we would realize 10 different things, that I could have done this, and maybe I could have taken the lesson in this way. But because we did not spend enough time on planning, and to the managements and to the heads of schools, I'm sure a message has been conveyed by our esteemed panelists that you need to give a dedicated time for planning. Moving on to Ms. Farzana Shakil, you were talking about a very important thing, and so I want to bring that question back to you. You said that in your previous question, that avoid using, generalized terms. You have to be specific. You have to be, very logically, scientifically lead this learning progression of a child. So I was reading Bloom's taxonomy provides a list of such verbs, which are often used by the educators when learning objectives, which then becomes the outcomes. May I please request all of you to mute yourself? And these are characterized according to the level of achievement which the students would be performing. How can educators measure such learning outcomes? Please share some. I mean, you can build upon, you've been sharing such concrete things. So please share some examples as well.
You have very rightly said. As I said, as an educator, we need to be well versed with NCERT learning outcomes, multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner to know the learning styles of all the children sitting in our classroom. And then, yes, very important, Bloom's taxonomy, because that sets the base and the foundation of all your planning and assessments. So be it your teaching plans or be it your assessment tools, because if you are trying to make children future ready, if you are wanting to design competency-based plans or competency-based assessment tools to know whether they have achieved and developed the competencies that you aimed for, then yes, Bloom's taxonomy needs to be understood in true sense. Then only you will be able to design your assessment tools accordingly. See, we keep talking about low order thinking skills and high order thinking skills. So why I told you to avoid children will be able to learn or understand these terms, because they fall in the low order thinking skills. Be it your planning or be it your assessing, whichever part you look into. So once we see the terminology with every bracket of the Bloom's taxonomy, when we rise higher in that triangle or the pyramid, if you want to say, the higher you move, you are giving intellectual stimulations to the children to perform better, to think of on their own, to do a lot of critical thinking, problem solving, to apply the gained knowledge and relate it to the real life situations. So we are adding and developing competencies. It's how, so that's why I said, just go through the Bloom's taxonomy, understand that terminology, because when you design your questions, when you frame, question framing itself is a skill. Asking questions is a skill. So please encourage your children also to do a lot of questioning when they are performing or doing teamwork, because the more they ask and what type of questions they ask, and in the same way as an educator, what type of assessment tools that you are designing to check what level of their thinking skills, because thinking skills is also one of the competencies that has to be developed in our children right from an early age. So it's not about just avoiding learning, understanding, recalling, define. These are all the terms which are placed very, very low in Bloom's taxonomy. So we have to move higher. But how will you move higher? Not all of a sudden, because you have to construct knowledge on the prior knowledge. So here lesson planning plays a major role. The way you plan your lessons, the way you set smart objectives and very, very specific time-bound objectives for your chapter or the topic that you are going to take in the classroom, that sets the base for your further activities, the procedure, the pedagogy that you are going to follow in the classroom, and further how you are going to assess. Again, for understanding and for expressions, give them multiple options. That's what I personally believe in, because children have different learning styles. Children have different ways to express themselves. Maybe a child is having good written skills. The child will be able to produce what you are expecting by writing it well, whereas other child may do it through dramatics or through role plays or through a PPT or by using ICT tools further in a various way. So give them ample opportunities to understand and then further express. So always have those multiple options in mind. And in lesson plan, as Devyani ma'am just mentioned, it's not only about objective, it's about your prior preparation as a teacher. So it's not about just planning. The moment you set the objectives and the further plan in alignment with your objectives to achieve the set learning outcomes for that particular topic which you are about to go ahead in the classroom, you need to know everything, how you are going to introduce, maybe with an activity or whatever method you want to adopt, whichever pedagogy you will be using. Everything should be very clear. Prior preparation, when I said, whether anything that you wish to use as a resource, apart from the textbook, make a vertical list, include those quantities, resources, websites, textual information, maybe multimedia links, or some videos that you want, or software programs that you want to share with your children. So everything has to be, well planned before, in a very balanced way, so as to cater to all the diverse needs of the students whom you are catering to. And then, yes, ultimately, to achieve the learning outcomes that we have set for. So assessment, again, multiple tools are available.
So I think such a beautiful, I would to call it a monologue, because you were speaking and we all were listening to and I would sum it up to what Ms. Shakil said, what Ms. Tuhina said, and what Dr. Naresh said. I mean, I just quickly, planning a dynamic lesson plan with your SMART goals. So all of you spoke about planning, all of you spoke about, dynamic, like Ms. Tuhina said, dynamic lesson plan. How can that become? How can it become dynamic? You have to cater to each and every child's. First, you need to understand your class demography. That is very important. You can't just walk in like, walking in a theater and coming out. You need to understand the needs of your class group and then probably profile them. That becomes very important. Once you know that these are those students who are a kinesthetic learner, or these are the visual learners, or these are, some other kind of, I'm not remembering all the MIs of Professor Howard, but so you need to profile them and then design the lesson plan, and I'm sure that will become quite easy. Finally, when we come to the end, there is one question which becomes very important, which I want to ask all our three panelists. And this becomes like evaluating. The final step in a lesson plan is that evaluation of the learning attained. And this, I'm not talking about the assessment which happens of the student, but evaluating our lesson plan. Whether the class was good, easy, not good, did the student appear motivated? And if not, then why not? What went wrong? So in terms of teacher evaluation, we reflect on whether the session planned and the sequence of activities that we had put in and the learning objectives, all that, were they workable or it could have been better? So if I ask each one of you, if you could just let us know about 2 to 3 benchmarks against which a lesson plan could be reviewed as a powerful lesson plan as against a weak, so that all the educators who are present here, they do lesson planning on a daily basis. But sometimes it doesn't work. So how would they identify that my lesson plan is not powerful enough and that is my class is falling flat? So I'll begin with the male on the panel and then move on to our gentle ladies. So yes, Dr. Naresh, I would want to hear it out from you. What is the measure of a lesson plan?
So the measure of the lesson plan is that how much the students actually attain the learning outcome. So that is the measure. Like for each and every lesson, we can see, for example, so here in Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, what we do is that we give a course delivery plan for the students before the semester itself. So students know what is the level of the assessment they will get. So we give the Bloom's taxonomy level when it is at the apply level or analysis level. So they clearly know for each and every lesson, so which level they are actually expected to put efforts. So they can actually monitor their own progress, and so they can see that at the end whether how much successful in attaining the learning outcome. So if they're somewhere they're falling, so the teachers we can know that by see. It's not like we have different kinds of assessments. It's not just summative assessment. We have formative assessment. So with this, you see, with the futuristic education is the topic here. So we see that with these online classes, at the end of the class, we actually use a maybe quiz using a web tool. So you can actually see that whether the students actually understood. We see it's not the exact word understood. So let us check whether they attained the what we expected from them, whether they'll got the skill which we actually intend to do that. So my point I want to say is that so by you seeing that the outcomes, you can actually measure that whether they are actually we are in the correct lesson plan or not.
Okay, thank you so much. That by measuring the student outcomes, whether they have learned it or not. Moving on to Miss Tuhina. Now, how would we measure that? So now from you, I want a more specific answer that, okay, this lesson plan, these are the 3 things. If you don't add in your lesson plan, it will be considered a week. If you add these 3, 4, it will be an average. But if you add these 7 things, so maybe whatever you want to say, how should we review कि ये lesson plan अच्छा और ये अच्छा नहीं?
Whenever we make a lesson plan, we keep in our mind the basic 3 types of learners: the auditory, the visual, and the kinesthetic, as you said right now, a few minutes back. So keeping this in mind, we all plan, we work on the plan, then the objectives, the teaching learning activities, strategies to talk students, understanding, everything is being done. Now, when the thing is already being done, we need to reassess our own strategies. We need to think backward, go from the student learning activities and the objective. The basic idea is whether we have achieved the objective or not. If you go back and you feel that your lesson plans, it's relatable, automatically your objective is attained. So as for me, if you ask, it is whenever you make a plan, you know what you want to achieve. At the same time, it becomes clear what the future might hold and what your goals are. So when you read back your lesson plan, when you reassess your lesson plan, or when you think backward and you go back to objective, you come to the conclusion that yes, my objective is attained or not. And for all these things, as we have been discussing, the strategies, the activities, the teaching learning processes, all these things are incorporated for reaching the objective. So for me, if you just the planning has been done, if you reassess yourself and if you think backward and go to the objective and feel that the objective is fulfilled, then your lesson planning is perfect or very close to perfection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tuhina. Very well said that you have to move backwards. So this was a learning objective, and you have to assess that did I meet this learning objective by using various, as I said, profiling, and Tuhina ma'am said that you have to divide them into auditory, visual, and kind. Let's hear out what Ms. Shakil has to talk about, that what is a powerful lesson plan. Gina.
See, powerful lesson plan, in the beginning only we have set SMART objectives, and M stood for measurable. So yes, we have to assess whether what we aim for, have we achieved that thing? So how will we know whether students have got it? So for that, again, we have to design assessment tools with proper rubrics along with it. And then those rubrics have to be shared in a very transparent and clear, crisp manner with the students, so that they also know that when we are going about and when we are following the processing part of the whole lesson, what is being expected out of us. So once students know, they will really work towards achieving that thing and make the teachers' work simpler. So things have to be shared well in terms of objectives, in terms of competencies, in terms of the design of the assessment tool, be it an oral quiz or a portfolio or MCQs, whatever teacher has designed, short questions or competency-based questions or a group project or a team activity. The purpose is it has to have a checklist or a rubrics, and then students need to know what is going to be assessed, because we are not judging. There is nothing right or wrong, but we are checking the progress of the children. So as a teacher, I need to ensure that the learning outcomes are met. So our assessment practices have to be reliable, valid, and necessarily matched with the learning outcomes cited in the NCERT handbooks or the manuals which have been shared with us.
So well said, that measurable, that's very important. And Ms. Shakil, you were talking about, and in fact, I had written myself in my notes as well, that when we talk about giving that feedback to the student, and that's not being that you're judging. So rubrics become very important. You spoke about rubric, and I remember when I was an educator, in our school, it was mandatory to have a rubric, and we had 4 parameters. So for each learning objective, each student, we would trace the progress of the student on the basis of beginning, approaching, meeting, and exceeding. So in each, if there was a learning objective, for that learning objective, there were certain parameters. If that child met those two parameters, he was at the stage of beginner. Then he was at the stage of meeting. If he could meet the learning, no, he was approaching. But if we could meet all the 5 parameters of the learning objective, then he was at the stage of meeting. And if he exceeded, because we always have children who are, above average, and that was. So thank you so much, all of you, for giving us such an insightful, power-packed 1 hour, where I think I was constantly taking down notes, and I'm sure our viewers were doing the same. Now, in each webinar, our audience put up their questions for the panelists. We generally select one question which we feel is the most powerful and relevant. The Edudevs team of experts selects them. Our team has selected the winning question for today, which shall be recognized and certified. And this question today was raised by Bibi Aisha Sheikh, Headmistress, Satvik Vidya Mandir, Bangalore. And her question I read, and I would request all panelists to reflect on it in a minute. The lesson plan prepared for offline class doesn't slide with the online class. And most of the time, teachers skip a lot due to shortage of time and other network glitches. What are the techniques and methods of lesson plan to be followed during such a time? Yes, Miss Shakil, I would like you to start with that.
Yes, wonderful question. First, I must congratulate Bibi Aisha Sheikh from Bengaluru to put across this question, because this is one thing which teachers faced during online teaching when they were, connecting with students through virtual platforms. Yes, you have very rightly said that offline lesson plan cannot be matched if we talk of online teaching. You have to keep in mind the short duration. Then you have to keep in mind that you are not physically present in front of the child. You are virtually present. So you need to keep all those aspects in mind. So you have to make your online lesson plans very, very engaging. And there are n number of tools. Here, like we are interacting through chat box. But when you conduct online classes, let me tell you, you design those 30 minutes, break them into small chunks, and you need to know which is teacher's part and which will be student part, and then student part through ICT various tools. Because there also you have assessment tools, which are not just passive talking and listening. It's about something which is very, very interesting, be it Mentimeter, be it Padlet, be it quizzes. There are n number of free tools which were available. Then students' presentation time in those 30 minutes schedule only. And then you can go with storytelling sessions, n number of tools can be used when you are online, because that class has to be interesting. Children have many extra interests already present at home. So why will they attend your class if you are also doing the same thing? So you have to, keep giving them surprises and those moments of joy and delight all through those 30 minutes to keep them engaged. And yes, the learning must continue.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Shakil. Over to you, Ms. Tuhina. What would you like to say about this? Am I audible, Ms. Tuhina?
Farzana ma'am has already given the views regarding ICT and use of ICT in your online sessions. As per me, I believe that the lesson plan or the teacher who is delivering the plan as per the strategies, whether it is online or offline, if the delivery procedures are interesting. Interesting itself word says that the teacher is using the ICT tool or not, and whether the teacher is engaging the child in the interaction of learning. So it is very, very important to realize that the best planned class is worthless. You may have the best strategies, you may have the best planning, but it becomes worthless if the interesting delivery procedures are not being followed, along with a good management technique. If these two things are not evident, then the plan cannot be successful, whether it is online or it is offline. So these two fractions, the delivery procedures and the classroom management techniques, because there are, as ma'am said, there are n number of ways and means where we can break in. So you use those things, you use the screen sharing, which definitely we all are using while we are presenting anything, so that the child is preoccupied. And then these are, of course, you need to check that the child is preoccupied or occupied or not. The classroom management techniques. So basically, keeping in mind the delivery procedures, and the classroom management techniques. Both these things should be taken into account while delivering your lesson plans in the classroom.
Very well said. Classroom management techniques, that's very important. In the art of classroom management and your delivery procedures. And if I club what Ms. Tuhina and what Ms. Shakil said, I think we get a very, very powerful recipe that you need to add all the ICT elements in your class, because otherwise then there is enough which they are seeing and viewing on the screen and enough food on their platter to make it interactive through, not just by speaking and listening, through the various ITC. Let the ICT techniques, the interface and the elements should take precedence. And then, of course, managing the classroom management becomes very important, that effective classroom management where the children feel extremely engaged. If they feel challenged, if they feel engaged, I'm sure they will not mute, unmute, or scribble on the screens or create those unnecessary, or if unnecessary glitches happen, that can be taken care. So yes, Dr. Naresh, what would you have to say, and what would your cherry be on the cake? Because they've already baked it. They've done a beautiful icing on the cake. Ms. Tuhina has done, and now the only scope left is for the cherry. What will that cherry be?
Definitely, the lesson planning can't be the same for the offline classes and the online classes. So we should use the different strategies for the various methods. And we also know that the research shows that students can't engage like more than 15 minutes on a screen time. So we should actually make the online classes a student-centered strategy than the teacher-centered strategies. So as both the ma'ams have mentioned here, so we should actively engage the students using the ICT web tool. So for example, we can use the simulations, so we can so demonstrations, so that students can actually participate in the class, then just sit and watch the class. And yeah, I think this is what I want to add.
I think yes, very well said that, use the ICT web tools. That is extremely important. Last but not the least, yeah.
Just to add a point, so if there is a technical glitches, so they can use the flipped classes. That could be the better method if there is a technical glitch.
Oh, that's a very, that they could use the flipped glasses if there is a technical, because the question did say if there is a technical glitch. My team says that there are, I'm very happy when audience want to raise questions. That's the most favorite round, even though we are running short of time, but it's still, we are actually exceeding time limit, but it's fine. My team members just hopped in and they said that there are audience questions. So yes, Ms. Deepika, can we take up some audience questions? We can't deprive our audience from asking the panelists.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Meena Chauhan.
Okay, from which school? Miss Meena Chauhan, welcome. Please introduce your school and yourself.
Miss Meena Chauhan, are you there? Kindly unmute.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Meena Chauhan.
Yes, please.
I'm Meena Chauhan from Jaunsar Public School, Chakrata, District Dehradun, in Uttarakhand.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am. What is your question and it's addressed to which panelist?
Ma'am, I want to know what are the tools for the competency-based lesson plan? How can we assess the students?
So whom are you addressing this question to?
Ma'am, anyone, ma'am, panelists? Koi bhi.
So I think maybe Miss Shakil could take up because she was talking about competency
Yes,
based.
ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
I'm a little confused
No.
between the names.
No problem. No problem. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Miss Farzana, you're muted. Miss Farzana, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmuted. Thank you. Thank you. Meena, ma'am, the question which you have asked, let me clarify one thing, because whenever we plan a lesson, we do not focus on any single competencies. The way life skills
Yes,
are all interlinked, in the same way, whenever we are designing or writing objectives for a particular topic, we have to focus on 2-3 competencies that are interlinked, so be it communication skills, be it any 21st century skill you can think of, be it media literacy, be it the creativity and innovation part. So when you design your assessment tools, your rubrics should mention and has to be shared with the children. When I said these things before, be it a small project, again frame some competency based questions wherein child is forced, because usually whenever we allot projects to be it a teamwork or individual children, what happens usually? Preferably your projects have to be team based, teamwork. Keep in mind that thing, because when they're working in team, they learn to collaborate, they learn to share their views, they learn to agree to disagree. These are also the skills and the competencies which every child, they learn to think out of the box, and
Sure,
they
ma'am.
learn to accept, and they are open to the ideas and the sharings of others, and then together collaboratively they problem solve. That's the beauty of teamwork. So when you are designing your assessment tools, whatever it is, be it a small puzzle or a group project or a presentation, because give multiple options for them to express their gain knowledge. Don't limit it to one test. So the more you are able to design the assessment tools, in your rubric section, see it that you have one parameter of the competency that you have aimed to develop through this topic, what you aimed in your objectives. So please see to it. I think if everything is well aligned right from your objectives, then the activity to evaluate, activity to review their previous knowledge, various activities you can design all through your classroom teaching. You can easily make it one of the parameter in your rubrics or the checklist, so as to assess whether children have developed that competency or not.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very clear. Perfect, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now, as we come to the end of this session, I would like our panelists to say one last, probably a sentence or two about the importance or the DNA of lesson planning. What is your last take, and what is that one advice you would like to give to our audience? Yes. So we start with Ms. Tuhina. Yes.
Ma'am, as per me, I would always suggest that whenever the teacher is planning, the teacher should be able to visualize and forecast the future of what, why, and how of the teaching learning process. That's it. So it's just a simple takeaway that whatever you plan, you should know what are you planning, why are you planning, and how you should plan so that you can have a successful teaching learning process. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you. What, why, and how of planning, how, what, and why of planning to have a successful teaching learning experience. Yes, Dr. Naresh, over to you. That one or two sentences that you want our viewers to know.
I would suggest all the educators that they should take the lesson planning seriously. It should not be like mere formality. They should take seriously and they should include the feedback so that it could be dynamic. That is what my suggestion.
Very rightly. That is actually the punchline, because I'm now going to introduce a segment that just reminds me of panelist punchlines. So it's very rightly said, please take your lesson plans seriously and don't think that every Friday you have to write because you'll get back your diaries on Monday. Take time to write your lesson plan and don't take them like a hard task which you have to perform. Yes, Ms. Shakil, what is your last bite on this?
My bite will be, as Sir has just given his punchline, what you, if I go by your words, invest time in planning the lesson, because we are touching lives on everyday basis. We are not working with non-living material. So please give enough time to plan your lessons and see to it. We are living in 21st century. See to it that keep them interdisciplinary with lot of infusion of life skills, values, gender sensitivity, environmental awareness, and all 21st century themes, I must say, as much as you can incorporate and align with the topic that you are planning to teach. So this is my say on lesson plan, and always keep an allotted time and the allotted part of the lesson to be presented by the students, be it once in a week, but please make sure that you plan it and make it a part of your lesson plan.
So thank you so much. So if you take your lesson plan seriously, don't think that it's a hard task. You design the how, what, and why, and take time to do that of your lesson plan. And if you incorporate all that 21st century skills, thought process has to offer, whether it is your sustainable development goals or the fourth or the sixth C's, the various skills, then nobody can defeat your lesson plan. And when we would review and put it under a review, your lesson plan will have a 10 on 10. Thank you so much. As we come to the end of the session, I just want to say that all teachers need to maximize the importance of lesson plan to enhance how they would be educating their students. A lesson plan works like a map that directs you on how to cover different topics within that curriculum. But at the same time, a teacher has enough leverage to explore, to play, and come out with different recipes each time they enter their class. I'll take your leave now, and we'll be back with some more interesting deliberations at the same time every Tuesday and Thursday. If you want us to discuss a particular theme or have a suggestion, please do write to us at info@edudevs.com. But before we leave, please stay tuned to a small video that we want to share. Thank you so much, our panelists. May we have the video, please? Thank you once again, all our esteemed panelists, for joining us for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.